Well, that's the first sign.
I think we're gonna be cut off pretty soon.
Happy New Year, Kiwanis! Thank you very much for the intrepid group that made it out today. We've actually got more folks here today than I anticipated, so that's awesome. Give yourselves a big round of applause. And I'm hoping everybody has power at their homes. I know that there were some outages. Great. Good to hear. And I know we have a lot of folks on Zoom with us today as well, which is completely understandable. My name is Jean Bellendorf. I'm the president of Kiwanis, and I'm very happy to be here, even though 2025 has gotten off to a little bit of a rocky start, to say the least. I cannot tell you how happy I am that you all were able to receive a report that Luke Young was found safe and that he is recovering. He is not out of the woods. It was a very traumatic experience, and he's probably going to be a little bit difficult to contact, but I do urge all of you to try and message him through his social media on Facebook or send him an email just to lift him up and let him know how much we're thinking of him and hoping that he makes a swift recovery. We also will need to lift up Eric Danielson and his family. Eric will be going into surgery this week, a quadruple bypass. I'm sure everything will go well for him, but it's going to be a long recovery. So please do. We have already sent a card previously for Eric, but please do again, keep him in your thoughts. You're welcome to call and text him. He very much appreciates receiving those messages. If you are interested in doing a little more for someone specifically, please reach out to our Kiwanis Cares Committee. Jenny Lee is the chair of that. And if you reach out to her directly or somebody else on the committee, they can give you a little bit of guidance about what you might do to help folks out. And I'd also like to mention, this was news that we just received yesterday. Our member, Courtney Plaster, you had heard previously that her brother-in-law passed away recently. Well, unfortunately, her father-in-law has also just passed away. And so please keep their family in your thoughts as well. It's been a difficult month for them. Okay, I'm going to call up Gary Dirk for our introspection and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
President Janam. Happy New Year. I made resolutions for the new year. Well, I've got a better path for you because resolutions are usually a do and a don't, just like laws are. But there is a law that is a statement of fact that'll make you a better person. It's known as the Scout Law. And I'm going to have you all participate with me in introspection today. So, everybody, if you were a scout, you put up your scout sign and repeat after me. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Now, if that doesn't make you a better person, you're hopeless. Okay, I got another thing. On the Pledge of Allegiance, if you are currently active military or you are a veteran, you may stand at attention, and salute the flag if you care to. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest country in the world. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Gary. Next up, we have Pegram in place of Andre, who's going to introduce our guest.
Good afternoon. We have 3 guests with us today, and I'm delighted to introduce them. The first 2 are with Mill Mountain Theater, and they're hosted by Larry Kufel right over here. And so they are Suzanne Cresswell. Please stand up. and Matt Shields, who is replacing Ginger Poole Avis as the director. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, but anyway, he's replacing Ginger as the new director of Mill Mountain Theater. Okay, thank you. And our third guest is Robert Nat, who is with Michael Brock, the same table. And Robert is a distinguished ex-swimmer and good friend of my son growing up. I'm just so delighted to have him here. And like I say, Michael Brock is his host, and Robert is with Freedom First Credit Union. So thanks for coming.
Well, that's terrific that we have some guests with us today. And we also have, I'll just mention, our newest member, Rita Joyce, is here with us today as well. So we're excited for that. All right. So we've got birthdays coming up, and I'm going to have to call on some people to help me sing because we're without music today. So we're a cappella, and y'all really don't want me to sing up here by myself. So January 5th, yours truly. Yes, the storm. January 6th, Dirk Cook and Stephanie Moon Reynolds. January 7th, John Bradshaw, who is 92 this year, our most senior member. And he's on Zoom with us today. He's also been a Kiwanian for 55 years. So that's quite an achievement. January 8th, Bob Rutherford. Is Bob with us today? No. Okay. January 11th, Steve English. Oh, come on, Steve. You don't want to stand up. January 13th, Chris Head. January 15th, Tom Blake. January 21st, Rhonda Purdue. January 22nd, Beth O'Brocta. January 23rd, Terry Vandelin. January 28th, Kiwanis Club of Roanoke, Andy Stone, Pegram Johnson, and John Montgomery. January 29th, Don Evans. January 30th, Joe Cobb, who just walked in the room, Mayor Joe Cobb. And January 31st, Frank Rogan. Now, I will remind everyone, it's often a tradition to give a birthday check on your birthday or during the month. So consider a check or a brag buck for our foundation. All right, let's see. Larry Kupel, Ben Spiker, Tom Miller. Can y'all help me sing? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kiwanis. Happy birthday to you. Wow, Jeff Vick has a nice voice too. That's good to know. A round of applause for all of our January birthdays. Okay, next up, we're doing one of my favorite things. We're giving away money. Bob Haberman. Are you ready? All right.
And thank you, President Jean. And we have one recipient today, and it's Mill Mountain Theater. And Larry, would you please come up and tell us a little bit about Mill Mountain Theater? And then Suzanne and Matt, if you would then tell us a little bit about what you're going to do with the grant.
Thank you, Bob. Well, we all know what Mill Mountain Theater is and what we do because we all go there most of the time. And matter of fact, we've got another social event coming up on March 13th to see the musical Waitress. So I'm excited about that. We'll have the reception and see the show on the same night. And we're very, very grateful for the grant that the Kiwanis had given us. It's much needed. As you know, the cost of business is going up all the time. And we are also feeling that pinch also. So we appreciate it very much. And we really enjoy the long-term relationship we've developed with the Kiwanis over the years. And we hope we can continue doing that for many, many more years to come. But let me tell you about a few changes that have taken place over the last month. Staff changing. As Pegram was alluding to, he's stealing my thunder. Ginger Poole Avis has decided to step down from her position as producing artistic director after a long and very successful tenure at Mill Mountain Theater. As you know, she probably started, I think, 2007, 2008, Matt. And she saw us through the dark years of 2009 through and reopened it in 2011. And we are here today because of her and some great board members. But she's not going to be far away. She has agreed to be a contracted consultant for the next 3 to 6 months to help with the transition. And I want you to meet our first management team, our managing director, Matt Shields. He's not going to take Ginger's place because nobody takes Ginger's place, but he's going to do a great job for us. Matt has been our production director for the last 6 months, our last 6 years, and he's done a great job for us. So, yeah, I know. Rise to fame. And also, we have a new member on our staff. Pardon? Suzanne Creswell is our new director of development. She comes to us from Carillion Clinic, highly recommended, and he's already hit the ground running and doing a great job for us. And now I'm going to have Suzanne come up to the microphone and tell us what she's going to do with the money that you have given us. All right? Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Good. It's good to see everyone here. My name is Suzanne Cresswell, as Larry said, and I'm the new development director. John Levin retired and left some big shoes to fill, but I am eager to step in and started November 1st. So we are really honored to receive this grant from the Kiwanis. We're really thrilled to have this long-term partnership with you all. And to have the opportunity to help bring the magic of theater to children across the region. I wanted to share a few statistics from 2024 because you all did also give us a grant in 2024. We had 371 youth in our Mill Mountain Conservatory classes. We had 9,453 children and families that were able to see 130 performances of youth shows. We gave away 456 free books to children. And overall, we had 185 arts events in 2024 and employed 256 actors, designers, and other theater artists, and had nearly 19,000 people in the audience who were able to see our shows. We are so grateful for the Kiwanis Club's continued partnership with Mill Mountain Theater and with the West End Center for Youth. In addition to the annual Kiwanis Christmas Luncheon, where Kiwanians read aloud to children, we hope to encourage members of your club in reading aloud The Rainbow Fish, which is the summer tour that we're doing, and Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, which is a musical and sounds really cute, that will be going touring in the fall. We hope that some of the Kiwanians will be able to come and read aloud to the children at the West End Center before they come and see the show, so they have a better idea of what they're coming to, and to really help them engage in that reading and that love of reading that we really want to encourage. So again, thank you so much for inviting us today. Thank you for your continued support. We really appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have our very own Greg Lineberger with his autobiography.
Hey, everybody. I'd like to start by telling you there's no way I could cover everything I would like to in a few minutes. So on occasion, I will tease something and hopefully I'll get a chance to eventually tell you the rest of the story. I was born on June 16, 1974 at Community Hospital here in Roanoke, the fourth and youngest son of Sam and Rendy Limer. You all know my oldest brother, Sam. He was followed by my brother, David, who's an attorney in Richmond, and my brother, Chuck, who many of you may also know from his work here with Roanoke County Schools. I have two kids of my own now, a daughter who will be graduating this May with honors from the University of Virginia with degrees in marketing, management, and data analytics. And I have a son who's a freshman studying engineering at Virginia Tech. I was born on Father's Day at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon, which also happened to be the final round of that year's U.S. Open golf tournament. Legend has it, my father and the doctor inquired whether my mother would mind waiting until after the golf was done, but she declined. I grew up near Hidden Valley Country Club and initially attended Oak Grove Elementary, but since our house was approximately 100 yards inside the Salem city limits, I was forced to transition to Salem School starting in 4th grade when Salem broke away from the county. I continued there until my junior year of high school when I transferred to Cave Spring High School because I could not get my schedule at Salem to fit with my schedule at Roanoke Valley Governor's School for Science and Technology, which I was admitted to my sophomore year. So while it was a challenge to bounce back and forth, it did allow me to make lots of friends across the valley. So many, in fact, I threw one of the biggest parties in memory my junior year when my parents left me alone for a week while they were in Hawaii. Great story, no time to tell. I graduated from Cave Spring in 1992 and headed to Virginia Tech, where, much to my parents' chagrin, I majored in Budweiser and minored in foosball with a concentration in girls. As you might guess, this was not a sustainable approach. So I departed after 2 years with very little to show for it other than lots of good stories. I waited tables and worked retail in preparation to move to Colorado, where I intended to be a ski bum for a year while I figured a few things out. That plan hit 2 snags, one in the form of a DUI I got a few weeks before I was supposed to leave, that derailed my departure, and the other was my now wife, Allison. There are a bunch of good stories I'm skipping over here, including the DUI one, if you can believe it. But the punchline is I did not move to Colorado, and instead I enrolled at Roanoke College, where I graduated with honors with a degree in business and finance in approximately 5 semesters. I did have a couple of credits I transferred. I knew I wanted to be in a bigger city, so after graduation in May and getting married in August, I accepted a job with Ernst & Young in Atlanta. It did not take me long to realize I did not want to be a public accountant. Quick aside, in fact, it was the time for like the 4th time I was told, you know, you're really nice for an auditor. And I went, maybe I'm not the right business. Excuse me. So I took a flyer on a tech startup called Zap Media. This was circa 2000, the bubbliest of the internet bubble. It was a 14-month rocket ship that ultimately failed to achieve orbit. So I was back to square zero. I wanted to get back to finance and was fortunate to get connected with the world of hedge funds. Now, this was still fairly early days for that industry. And the first firm I worked for, I learned more from what they did wrong rather than what they did right. However, it positioned me to be ready for a much better opportunity. In 2007, I joined a firm called GMT Capital as their business development and investor relations lead. At the time, GMT was one of the best performing hedge funds in the world. And it just so happened to be run by a guy that was good friends with my father-in-law and was based in Atlanta. When I arrived, GMT was just under $3 billion in assets under management. When the market crashed in 2008 and then roared back in 2009, we outperformed it by over 50% over those 2 years. Insert many stories. So it was no surprise that by 2011, we were at over $6 billion in assets under management, with individual clients that had over $250 million invested. Sadly, that's when things started to deteriorate. What had once worked so well for so long stopped working. Underperformance followed, and then followed some more, and I spent the next 10 years fighting a rearguard action as our ability to raise new money eroded to zero. The writing was on the wall. My days at GMT were numbered. While I wouldn't change my path, one thing it did not have room for was an MBA. So along the way, I pursued the Chartered Financial Analyst, or CFA, designation, as I knew I needed one or the other to be the guy asking the questions instead of the one answering them. For those that aren't familiar, the CFA is sort of like a bar exam, except there are 3 levels you have to pass, and you can only take levels 2 and 3 once a year. It's an incredibly demanding test, and while I got through the first 2 levels, I had failed to pass level 3 twice, so I had put that effort aside. When it became clear my time at GMT was coming to a close, I decided to dust off my CFA books and try one last time. As you might guess, since I'm standing here wearing a shirt that says Lineberger Construction, I did not pass. In fact, I would later learn that the pass rate for level 3 that year was just 25%. I did well on topics like equities, fixed income, and portfolio management. The reason I did not pass came down to the topics of derivatives and ethics. Now, derivatives are things like options and credit default swaps. They're very complicated and esoteric, and simply put, I know enough to know I don't know enough. And I would never advise anyone to try to put my own money to work in them. Ethics are another matter. Over my career in finance, I acquired a few different securities licenses. I also acquired another professional designation called the Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst. So I've studied ethics something like a dozen times at this point. Simply put, I do not need a book to tell me don't rip off my boss, my clients, or the market. That's basically what all that stuff really boils down to. However, the CFA is very proud of their efforts, and their questions are tricky. So alas, I scored poorly, and that combined with my score on derivatives is why I'm not a CFA. As you might expect, that's a difficult spot to be in. I began interviewing for roles similar to my one at GMT, but my heart was not in it. I figured I had about 20 more years left to work, and I didn't want to spend it doing what I had done for the last one. Ultimately, I decided that whatever I did next, I was not, I wasn't truly going to be satisfied until I was the guy signing the front of the paycheck, not the back. I considered buying a small business that I could run myself, but that was pretty risky with 2 kids still in school. Now, my brother Sam and I have always been close. And when I was just sharing with him what was going on, I was taken aback when he asked, "What about coming back?" Sam has 2 daughters. Neither of them showed a desire to get involved at the company. And so things were going to change at some point. The more I considered it, the more I realized it was the right path forward. I officially joined Lineberg Construction in April of 2022. It's been an incredible blessing to finally get to be a part of the company that has meant so much to me for so long. Helping others in the community is something that has always been important to me, but my life in Atlanta didn't always sync up with broader efforts. So I focused on coaching basketball and teaching Sunday school. However, moving back to Roanoke and joining our company has given me an opportunity to do more. Being a Kiwanian has been a big part of that. Not just the work we do here, but by exposing me to so many great worthy causes, like No Mountain, and around town. In addition to being on the board here now, I'm on the boards of the Ram House, Salvation Army, and Blue Ridge Off-Road Cyclists. And I support a few other organizations, less formal. The opportunity to be a part of my family's business, help others in the community, to be here for my parents in their golden years, has been a remarkable lesson. Thanks for the opportunity to share my story so far. I'm excited to see how the next few chapters here in Roanoke.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Greg. I know I speak for many of us in the room and in the community when we say we're glad you came home. All right, we have a few announcements. Book club that was originally scheduled tonight is canceled due to the weather. The next meeting will be February the 12th, same time, same location. Our officers are meeting tomorrow. We have a board meeting on Monday at noon at the Western Virginia Water Authority boardroom. That's our meetings that will continue to take place next week: Nature Park, Nominating Committee, and Membership Committees. You can check on the website calendar for up-to-date information on all of those if you're not receiving emails from your committee chair, which you should be. January 17th, we have our hockey game, and the deadline to sign up is this Friday. We have sign-up sheets on the tables. Mike, did you have anything you want me to add? I think it should be a fun game. Anyone who hasn't been to a hockey game, the Rail Yard Dog fans are quite notorious in the league. Also, I wanted to just give a reminder to everyone that we did receive a solicitation appeal from our foundation. And the Kiwanis Foundation is very important to our club because this is how we give out our grants. This is how we give out some of our scholarship money, and it really supports our service budget. Now, I mentioned previously that birthday checks are a tradition, thanks to John Bradshaw. Well, it's also our club's 105th birthday. And so I have a check today for both birthdays, the club's 105th plus mine. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Let's just say I'm not at 100 and I'm not at John Bradshaw's level yet. But I would encourage you all to make a check if you can. If you put in at least $105, you will be entered into a drawing for prizes, various gift cards and activities around town. So it's a fun way to make a donation. And of course, it is tax deductible because the foundation is a 501c3. And now I've got a little bit of time for brag bucks. Does anyone want to start off our first meeting of the year with a brag buck? Dang, y'all, come on. All right, here comes Sherry and Dave. The deadline for the foundation checks is our club's birthday, our last meeting of the month, which is the 29th.
Hello, Happy New Year to everybody. I just wanted to tell you all how impressed I am with the quality speakers we have. And in particular, I want to thank Keith Hartman and Jeff Vick for their work in finding speakers for January, and Chris Rao, who's been looking for and working on getting speakers for February. And I thank you for being on time with that. And then March, I want to thank JC for being willing to help us find speakers for March. So thank you all for helping us. We also have had great speakers in the past. I know Frank Rogan was great in November getting speakers, and Bart Wilmer was just wonderful in October finding a really good group of speakers. So thank you all. Lori Baker Lloyd was and Stephanie and Reynolds helped me with speakers in December. So thank you all for being good coordinators. And thank you, Sherry. A memory. Thank you.
You think I'm going to come up here and this is Don Witt, and I'm come up here and talk about Penn State's football team, but I'm not. I'm going to brag about Penn State's women's volleyball team, who won the national championship last 2 days ago.
I'm Harry Zuloff. You know, I was going to brag about Ohio State, but I will say there's another Big Ten team that's in the semifinals, and that's Penn State over there. So it could be an all Big Ten final. Let's hope for it. Take it easy.
I want to brag about my Fed Up organization. We just had our Christmas of Hope a couple of weeks ago, right before Christmas, December 14th. And we gave toys to about 33 children that were impacted by gun violence. These are the children that lost their family parent to gun violence. So we were able to, with the help of donations, generous donations from so many people, we had toys for 33 people, had arts connections there to do face painting. And I mean, it was just so wonderful to see those kids so happy.
Thank you, Rita. All right. Well, that was great. I have to say, I could do with the Sherry Hartman standing next to me, whispering all the important stuff in my ear too. I think we all need one of those. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our member, Jeff Vick, who will be introducing our speaker for today, Robert Garrett.
Good afternoon. Yes, actually, thanks to David and also Keith Hartman for helping me locate some great speakers for you all. However, this isn't about me, it's about our speaker. He made me promise not to read his whole bio, and I won't. I don't have to explain what Boy Scouts of America is. A lot of us came up through the Scouts. I credit any success that I had as a young man from my experience in scouting. Robert Garrett is the CEO for Boy Scouts of America here at the Blue Ridge Mountains Council, and he's extraordinary for a couple of reasons. One is he's been involved with scouting for 44 years, from being a Cub Scout all the way up to the various levels of scouting, and professionally in the Boy Scouts for 24 years. These are people who are forming the future of young men, and on the other side, of course, with Girl Scouts, young women in scouting of our folks in the future. Robert is new to Roanoke, but has come to settle among us, has been here for 3 months. So please make him feel welcome, and we'd like to get him back here and become a Kiwani
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I am unfortunately a free range speaker, but I have a test for you guys for this afternoon. So if you hear something that applies to you, I want you to stand up and remain standing, not for the entire speech, but until I'm done with my little test. If you are an Eagle Scout or a Gold Award recipient in the Girl Scouts, please stand up. If you were ever a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, please stand up. Remain standing. If you were ever a Cub Scout or a Brownie, please stand up. If you had any kids involved in scouting, please stand up. If you know any scouts, please stand up. So as you look around the room, you can see what the impact of scouting is. You can sit down now. So as you can see, scouting touches almost everyone's life. I've been in scouting for 44 years. I am an Eagle Scout out of Atlanta, Georgia. My Eagle Project is actually still there in a little town called Smyrna. I built a nature trail around King Springs Park there. They paved it 3 years after I did it, and that was back in the mid-'80s. So it is still there. I have 4 kids. All 4 have been in scouting. Believe it or not, none of them have made Eagle Scout. But that's actually not the point of scouting. The point of scouting is actually to get to first class, which is only one of the middle ranks, which teaches you self-confidence, camping, first aid skills, swimming skills, life-saving skills. And let me tell you, if you can go out and camp in the rain and have a good time, you can do anything in life. Can I hear an amen? Ain't that the truth? So I'll address the elephant in the room about what has been going on in scouting nationally over the last 5-6 years. Nationally, you probably have heard all about the lawsuits and the abuse claims and everything like that. Yes. The reason the Boy Scouts were sued for that is because the national organization held all the insurance for every single Scout Council in the country. So they made a big target. Okay. As opposed to most other organizations where the insurance is kept locally. So it's harder to sue that way. But yes, we had some abuse in the past. Pedophiles seek out youth serving organizations. That's what they do. We have been on the forefront of youth protection our entire time. Back in the 20s and 30s, we were doing what the CDC recommends, which is to kick those folks out and keep a list so they don't come back in. Back in the early 80s, we started adopting 2-deep leadership, mandatory protection training, and we became the very forefront of that program. And using public information, you can look at the cases that were against the Boy Scouts of America. They peaked in the 60s and 70s, and in the 80s, they dropped like a rock, which is exactly what we were trying to overcome. We have equitably compensated anyone who may have been abused, and including anyone who may have just filled out a form to get a check. Because as you know, with class action lawsuits, everybody fills it out, sends it in, gets their 25 cents from AT&T. I mean, you got that one? We created a fund to settle all of that. To today, we are actually one of the safest organizations out there. And we have been for a very long time. Okay? Mandatory youth protection training. Up until 10 years ago, you couldn't get a 50-state background check. You had to go to each individual state. We now do 50 state background checks on everybody. And I can tell you from experience, they get run every year. And your local counties and your local governments are continuously upgrading their systems and putting stuff back in. So yes, I know about that DUI that happened back in 1920. It's now been uploaded to the system and it pops up on our background check. Okay. So we're a very safe organization. You hear a lot of bad things in the news. We get picked on a lot. I don't believe everything I hear in the news. I can tell you what scouting does and how we work with our community. For a long time, we stuck our head in the sand. We didn't want to be out in the community. We didn't want to be seen. That's all changing. That's what my job is. I came here to be a part of this community, to revive scouting in the valley. I know in Roanoke, there's the Roanoke Valley. You got the Salem Valley, the Blacksburg Valley. There are a lot of valleys around here. I will say we're going to reintroduce scouting to the valley. Here in the Blue Ridge Mountains Council, we're very excited. We served over 2,800 youth in the valleys. We have 21 counties. We have a camp that is 13,000 acres out in Pulaski. It is a huge playground for kids to go out and rock climb, hike, fish, learn responsible firearm safety, camp. In fact, we had just over 100 folks out there this past weekend in the snow in the mountain, camping at a winter camp, learning everything from welding to handicraft. And let me tell you, seeing a young lady weld is pretty cool. And they are excited about it. You've heard over the news that, yes, we now allow young ladies in the program. Guess what? Girl Scouts is still around. It is a fantastic program. They serve 2% of the youth population in America. Scouting America, which is actually our new name, starting February 8th, serves 2% of the youth in America. So we've got a lot of youth we would like to serve between the two organizations. We started letting young ladies in about 5.5 years ago. My daughter is one of them. And let me tell you, young ladies have been involved in scouting since the beginning. My sister tagged along with me. She went on campouts, everything like that. I was an honorary brownie. I sold Girl Scout cookies. Okay. We have just changed to allow those young ladies to earn the same awards. We didn't change any advancements, no requirements, nothing like that. And they're actually in separate units. So they're growing and developing as young ladies. The young men are growing and developing as young men. Now we are piloting combined units, but guess what? Out of 167 scouting organizations across the world, 159 of them are co-ed. The only ones that aren't typically end in Stan or Russia. Okay. We are an international organization. We are a local organization. As you can see, a lot of you have grown up through scouting. We got a lot of fun things happening here locally. We will be moving into a new office February 11th. We are actually going to be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony with the chamber. So please feel free to come out. I believe it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's off of North Peters Creek. For the last 5 years, we've been in a little bitty box, about 500 square feet. We are actually opening up 2,300 square feet, which will include a store to serve our customers. So it's very exciting. Now, I know I've just been talking about 10 minutes, but I like to answer questions because you guys, I'm sure, have plenty of them. I don't tap dance. That's the only question that's off the table. And I don't sing very well. So what questions might you guys have? Yes, sir.
That interactivity, whether it's on the playground or the classroom or wherever, where you have to learn, that's where you learn how it works. And what I'm understanding, my daughter is going to be today, she's like, the freshmen don't know how to talk. We're trying to get them to do it.
Absolutely. The question was, how did COVID affect, one, the community, but also scouting? Um, COVID really affected our younger program, the Cub Scouts, the elementary school kids. That program didn't translate well into Zoom. Our Scouts BSA, our older programs, we were already outside. We're already social distancing. We were prepared for the pandemic for the last 100 years. Quite honestly, they continued on. We are rebuilding the Cub Scout program. I have seen, like you were stating, that the youth today really are struggling with that social interaction. And quite honestly, this device here is killing it. It makes it very difficult. My own two younger kids, I have 4 kids, a 25-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 13-year-old son. My 2 younger kids sit at the table and talk to each other by text. And I finally made everybody put it in the middle of the table and say, first one that picks it up pays for dinner tonight. The only way I can get them to put it down. And quite honestly, yes, we have seen those kids and their social interactions. And that's what scouting does, is it brings kids together from all over the place. You may be local in your troop and know your friends there, but you go out to camp and you're meeting kids from all over the country. Our camp hosts folks from 36 different states. It's an amazing process. A great question. What other questions do we have? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The question was about outreach and how we help youth that may not be able to afford scouting. Scouting is expensive. It is cheaper than sports. It is year round, where your sports are 3 months. We have an outreach program called Scout Reach that currently is serving 181 youth right in Roanoke in the inner city. Okay. We also have a thing that we will not let any child who wants to join scouting, money will not stop them. I don't really have a budget for it, but what I do is I help them and we assist them. We also have camperships that we do have for youth that want to go to camp. But anybody that wants to join scouting, I'll figure out a way. We'll find a way. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. From my knowledge, and I've only been with this council 3 months, Clayton Lake was purchased by a loan about 10, 15 years ago. It did not work out quite the way that we would have liked. They ended up selling the office about 5 years ago to keep paying down that loan. Ultimately, last May, I believe, we sold the Clayton Lake aquatic space. It helped pay down some of the debt. When I got here in September, we had $20,000 in cash and $400,000 in bills. I'm happy to say that as of October, we are actually debt free. So we were able to pay all of that. We moved some stuff around. We raised some money and are able to pay our bills and really have started to grow where we don't have the loan over us. Yes, sir. Question is, what's our relationship with the Girl Scouts? I think it's a pretty good one. I have yet to meet the executive director in this area. It's on my list of things to do. But I have always had a great relationship with the Girl Scouts. Boy Scouts nationally, we have a great relationship nowadays with the Girl Scouts. We're both in the business of teaching young folks morals and values. And quite honestly, like I said, between the two of us, we only serve 4% of the youth. So there's no reason for us to argue over the other 96. Let's just go out and recruit them. Teach them the right way. That answer your question? All right. Other questions? Y'all can't be. February 11th. Yep. It's the week of our scouting anniversary. We'll be 115 years old. So, and it's the new office is off North Peters Creek Road. Yes, sir. No, the Boy Scouts. The question is: are the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts combining? Are the Girl Scouts allowing young men in? Are we allowing young women in? The answer is no. The Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are not combining. We are both two very strong organizations. We are allowing young ladies in, and like I said, girls have been around forever. They've actually been in the programs since the 1950s and exploring. I don't know what the Girl Scout plan is, whether they will allow young men in or not. I can tell you they tag along just like I did. My my sons tagged along with my daughter when she was in Girl Scouts. So they're there. They're just not working, they're not earning the achievements. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Yes, the title of the Boy Scouts of America is that's we're going to be doing business as the Scouting America, so which is more inclusive. So, yep, a Scout's a Scout. Girl Scouts are still around. Great organization. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. In it always has been. Boy Scouts of America has always been an American organization. The scouting movement across the world is known as World Scouting. So that's what Baden Powell started. So it's still an American organization. Just like basically the way I would say scouting functions is we're like a franchise. So we have the national organization and each council is its own franchise. It's the same thing with World Scouting. You have World Scouting and they franchise the different scouting organizations. So you have a scouting organization in Brazil, in England, all over the place. Most of them are. Like, I think it was 159 of 167 countries. Yep, that's what I was alluding to. Those are all co-ed. We're one of a very few that are not currently. Well, we're growing. We've got excitement, enthusiasm. Yes, sir. Hmm? Sure. Question. Sure. The question is, how has scouting changed in the last 20, 30, 40 years? Well, we've changed with the times. Back when I was a scout in the early 80s, we didn't have computer merit badge. We didn't have graphic design. We didn't have any of the STEM badges. Now we do. Now, we also don't now teach beekeeping, although I hear that one may be coming back. But we now have theater, game design. I actually have purchased a 3D printer for our camp. So we teach kids how to 3D print, laser engraving, all these things that the kids are now doing. We didn't do there, but the same basic tenets, outdoor skills, confidence, leadership, youth development, those are all the same. Just some of the extra badges and stuff have changed. That's really all that has changed. All right, any other questions? All right, then I'll, yes, sir. Sure. Question was top 3 biggest challenges. Of course, getting our name out there. For too long, we hid in the in the church basements and in the woods. Right now, if you Google something to do with my kid, we don't even pop up on that. So really getting it out that we are a choice. And not only are we a choice, we're a year-round choice. So you can do baseball, you can do football, you can do soccer, you can still do scouting. I was a band geek for 4 months out of the year. I was at a football game every Friday night. Saturday morning, I would go to a camp out and join the rest of my friends camping. So that's one challenge. Fundraising is always a challenge because there are more nonprofits than you can swing a dead cat at in the area. There are a lot of them. So that's always an issue. And quite honestly, the third and probably the hardest to overcome is societal. It's these. You know, and that's one thing we have a blessing out at camp. There's no internet out there. There's no phone out there. There's internet for the adults, but you have to have the Wi-Fi password, but you can't get a cell signal out there. So that most kids are afraid to look up from the phones. That's a societal issue. So, and it's learning to talk again. So yeah, that's the 3 biggest challenges. All right, no problem. Well, then I'll close with a story because I've been in scouting 44 years. And I can tell you, I have seen the best of scouting. I've seen the worst of scouting. I think I've seen it all. But 5 years ago, when I first moved up to Winchester, my family was back in Asheville, North Carolina. My daughter was 9 years old. Our brother was 8. Mom was out walking the dog, and my kids were cooking mac and cheese. Something that they've done since they were like 4. Because, you know, scouting, we teach cooking. What we do. Well, my son climbed up on a stool, checked the water in the noodles. The stool collapsed. He hit the pot of boiling water. It covered him from head to toe in boiling water. My 9-year-old daughter heard him scream, ran, got him, threw him in a cold shower. After he stopped screaming and kind of calmed down, she put him in a chair and threw a wet blanket over him and then ran outside to get Mom. They ended up life flighting him from Asheville, North Carolina to Augusta, Georgia, to the burn center there. He had burns over 15% of his body, 2nd-degree burns. The doctor actually said if she hadn't done what she did, they would have been 3rd-degree burns because they would have continued to burn on him. So as I rushed down from Nashville and I picked up my daughter, because she didn't fly on the helicopter, from a friend of ours in Asheville, I asked her, all right, I know what to do when I burn my finger. How'd you know what to do when your brother got burned all over him? She said, well, we just happened to be talking about it before a hike in my bear den. And we were talking about first aid and what to do if you got a big burn. You stick them in water. Okay. And you figured out how to do that? She goes, yeah. My 9-year-old daughter did that in scouting. And because of scouting. That's one example of what scouting does in our community. And that happens every day all over the place. We just actually gave a heroism award to one in Danville, just outside of Danville and Chatham, for a gentleman that a young man, which surprised me seeing this kid was one of our bigger youth, actually swam out and saved 2 young ladies, and his buddy got in trouble in the river and he pulled him out and started CPR. A young gentleman in Salem was just awarded a heroism medal as well for running into a burning car and pulling kids out. It's happening all over the place. It's not hitting the news. Thank you.
Robert, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation, and I loved hearing everybody's questions as well. Some really awesome questions. We do have a small honorarium to present to the Scouts Council. Okay. So just as a reminder, if it wasn't clear previously, we would like to compete for the prizes for the foundation donation. The deadline is January the 29th, which is our last meeting for the month of January. Next week, we're going to have a very interesting presentation, the United Nations model at Roanoke College, and that is presented by Dr. Andrea Mihalake O'Keefe. I had to look that up to pronounce it correctly. I think I did it right. We're very excited about that, and we are adjourned.